So we have a project. We call it OM Champion Project.
Centre de Pelé vers Papin qui dévie habilement vers Chris qui reprend. Et but fantastique de Chris Dimeco dans le paquet. Il n'est pas signalé en jeu face à Joël Max et ça va être le but de Chris Waddle. But de Waddle. 1-0 pour l'Olympique de Marseille.
Hello everyone and welcome to yet another episode of the Marseille View, and today we're going to debrief the Amiens against Marseille game, which ended as a very disappointing 3-1 for the home team, and Marseille suffering their second loss of the season. Marseille, I believe, is pointing at the bottom of the mid-table, and is facing the international break, after which they'll be playing some very difficult games, including the examples of PSG, Lyon, Monaco, Lille, and Strasbourg, which is also a fixture not to put away that easily. So we're going to talk about a lot of things in this game. We're going to talk about the game itself and the reasons why it all went so wrong for Marseille. Some players that did better than expected, and obviously, as usual for Marseille, we should basically put a whole new category on this podcast, and that will be talking about some refereeing decisions, which I'm sure if you're listening to the podcast and have watched the game, you're probably going to agree with. But to do all this, there's going to be three people today, including myself. So the first person to join me is Stefan. Hey, Steph.
You alright?
Yeah. How did you find Friday?
Pretty poor game, to be honest. Yeah, pretty shit.
Yeah.
Disappointing.
Difficult to wake up on Saturday morning after those kind of games.
Yeah, I was in a bit of a bad mood after the game. It was just, I think I'd been out for dinner and then came back, kind of looking forward to watching it. And
Oh, really?
yeah, it's the kind of game you should be winning, you know. So yeah, pretty disappointed.
Yeah. And the second speaker for today is Ben. How you doing, mate?
Yeah, same as both of you, and you know what you've just described, whether it's the run of games or the refereeing decisions, it's the stuff of fucking nightmares. To be honest, it's I'm not very optimistic, but we'll see. We'll talk about that.
Yeah. So as we said, we're going to debrief the game, but just to give you a preview, so Marseille are now on their fourth winless game against pretty poor sides. We drew against Dijon, we lost against Amiens, and some previous draws, including the likes of Rennes and Montpellier, which obviously Marseille could have won pretty easily. And seeing the run of games that Ben is mentioning, not a lot of optimism on the Marseille side. We're probably going to be looking to drop behind the 10th place, and maybe going to, end of October, start of November, start asking ourselves questions as to, what are the hopes for this season. But let's go straight into the game. I'd like to first talk about the refereeing, because I think it's going to be a recurrent theme of this podcast. So I don't want to excuse the poor performances of our players. So I think we should just set aside 10 minutes or so talking about the referee, and then we can delve into the players. I don't want to just talk about players and then just say yes for the referee. So let's talk about the referee. So in terms of decisions that were quite controversial, we all have in our mind the penalty for Duyecetza and the non-call against German 5 minutes before. We also have the multitude of yellow cards that were just being thrown our way. We have the handball from an Amiens player in their box before their third goal. And we've got Alexis Blin who tackled Lihaji with 2 feet, and he was already on a yellow card, and that was not even a foul. So, Ben, I always when I list these things, I always ask myself if I'm a bit paranoid about these things. Out of all these, do we have a leg to stand on?
It's just getting beyond the joke now. I mean, at the risk of this podcast and the format heading in style of a Rudy Garcia press conference where the first thing he does is moan about the fucking refs, we are getting raped. We are the main team in Europe and in this league certainly who get inconsistent decisions. It's not just dodgy decisions. It's just the inconsistency of the decisions that in the same fucking game are being given against us, and then we're not getting in our favour. It baffles me, and I'm really starting to. As you say, we can't hide behind that for the poor performances of the last few weeks, but it certainly is not helping us, and it is leading to this climate of frustration. You can sense it in the players, and you can sense the incidents we've had in the last few weeks with players getting booked and sent off stupidly. It is not helping, and yes, our players have to keep their heads. But if I was on the pitch, I'm one of the calmest people you'll ever meet, but I would be losing my fucking mind at the referee. It's week after week, inconsistency after inconsistency. And then when you watch our opponents, they get very soft decisions, and we are clearly being disadvantaged. And yes, we'd all fall into that paranoia accusation, and yes, it's normal to find some excuses. But hey, we can't just hide behind that. But it's doing my head in. I'm getting sick of it.
Yeah, and we talk about isolated incidents, but it clearly has, and you can see visible impact on our players. The clearest example I can think of is Sanson. You can really see after every decision, he's just looking to the sky, and he just can't believe. Like, it's like you can see in his head, he's like, I can't do anything right. Whatever I do, I could even make the best tackle in the world. It will always be called against us. And at the end, you can tell that it translates into their performances.
Yeah, and it's the total fuck over, because of the timing of the decision, which is, Germain, when I think we were 1-0 down, or we were 1-1 at that point, and that completely changes the game, because 5 minutes later we concede. And the way these decisions come about and the time at which they come about in the game, they're often during our strong points, and that's often you can feel the sort of enthusiasm being drained out of the players, because they just feel like they're getting screwed, and they give up, and then lapse of concentration leads to a goal for the other team or a dodgy decision for them very shortly afterwards. So it's very frustrating.
Yeah, what's your take on these events, Steph? Like, have you got one particular incident in mind, or have you got a bit of a general rant like Ben did?
I mean, I think I agree that, and this has kind of always been like this as far as I can remember, that we do seem to always get. Well, it does seem like we've always got referees that are against us in games, and but I recognise how silly that sounds. For the non-Marseille supporters, they listen to us and they'll think that we're just bad losers. But I mean, it's hard to be a Marseille fan and not feel that you're continually getting decisions going against you season after season, and the introduction of the VAR doesn't seem to have helped at all. If anything, it's got worse. I mean, in terms of some of the individual decisions, and it's the same with the previous weeks, like some of them I'm like, yeah, okay, that's the wrong decision, and others I'm like, maybe we could have got it our way, maybe we couldn't. I'm not going to lose too much sleep over them. I think the one that stands out from yesterday's game, obviously, was Friday's game. Sorry, was the two penalty shouts, and the fact that one was called and one wasn't when they were very similar.
And one was called. The referee in both times was adamant. Split decision, was absolutely certain that one was not a penalty and the other one was. It's not like he called the VAR, he wasn't sure. In both cases, like you said, they're exactly the same, but he's sure. It's black and white. This is a penalty, this is not. And you're like, how can you tell?
I think it's something to do with where he's standing, maybe where the referee's standing, and what angle he's got, what viewpoint he's got of the incident. Maybe that's all I can really think of. But yeah, I don't. From a spectator's point of view, it doesn't look good. It looks inconsistent. But Ben, you said that all these little decisions count against us in the game. They frustrate the players. I agree, but at the end of the day, whether or not these decisions are going against us, if we're good enough, we should still be winning. If if I don't know, say Barcelona were playing, you know, Valladolid or someone like Zaragoza or something, and these kind of decisions are going against them, you'd still expect them to win the games,
It's a bad, it's a
And
bad
we're just
example,
not,
though, Steph, because
we're just not good enough.
Because Barca always get the rest with them, so that's a bad example.
I don't know,
I agree, though. I agree. We've got to handle this better.
Sorry, I've lost you there.
Yeah, I think we lost Ben. You muted yourself
Sorry,
as you were talking.
Yeah, sorry. I was just saying we've got to handle this better. I agree with you, Steph. We've got to handle this better mentally.
Yeah, but I mean, the narrative of we should win in spite of referees is fine when it's a game there or two, when you're like, well, you shouldn't make abstraction of the faults, because faults are human, like they're human, and there's like humanly mistakes. But when it's clearly ingrained in the supporters' minds and the players' mind at this point that the errors are not random, they're systematic, and they're targeted towards Marseille players and the Marseille team, the players can't help, but it will affect their performance, because they'll always have the back of their mind that it's injustice, and that even if they make a run, that it will be offside, that they could make the best tackle and it will still be called against them, and they could get 2-foot tackled like Lihaji did, and nothing's gonna happen. Like you get this sense that you're just demoralized. They're human as well, and they see the injustice game in and game in and game in and game in, and you're like, what is the point of fighting when clearly it doesn't change anything?
It doesn't help either when you've got decisions like suspensions and stuff post game that seem to go against us as well. So like actually calculated decisions from the league, the French football league, to penalise our players or our club, for example, for things that the fans do or anything like that seem to be stronger than what some of the other clubs seem to get or some of the other players seem to get. So all these, that doesn't help either, doesn't it? It creates that picture that we are this club that's being oppressed, that we are being discriminated against. And, we could look much deeper than that, and we probably all might have an explanation about why we think that might be, in the, wider sense of France and French culture and attitudes and stuff like that. But at the end of the day, we're still not good enough. So, I don't want to hide behind it too much,
I agree. And if this can be the closing statement, maybe it's what the fuck can we do about it anyway? We can't do anything about it. We know that Lyon have been advantage, and whether it's clear or not, whatever, we all know who's running the league. It's an ex-Lyon employee and all this stuff that you could get very paranoid about, which doesn't add up indeed. But at the end of the day, I remember moaning about this. I think I mentioned a few weeks ago, why doesn't Hiro, step up and say something or whatever? Well, turns out he actually tried to last week or after the
against Montpellier.
Against Montpellier, and no one knows what happened and whatever, but he apparently tried to step foot in the referee's dressing room and got a 4-game ban from the stadium. So it's clear that we can't do anything about this. So all we can focus on is probably what we're going to discuss next, is what we do on the pitch when these decisions are going against us, etc. How we play around that, and how we make the most of a game of football, and how we try and win games despite the referee.
Yeah, I'm gonna just highlight for those who didn't follow what Stefan said about the suspension. Just for those who didn't follow up on the news, Marseille. So Camara had a 2-game suspension plus 1 because of accumulations of yellow cards. After the second game, Marseille appealed to an independent body of football to get the 3rd game removed, to which they agreed. They said the independent body said that he should be able to play for the 3rd game. They sent the evidence to the league, and the league refused. They just decided that in spite of the evidence, in spite of the support of this independent body, they will just continue the suspension. And added to what Ben said with the fact that Error has been suspended for trying to talk to the referees after the game, which is something that Olas does every game for nothing and gets nothing out of it, it does point to the direction that there is an institutional, or at least puts the seed in everyone's mind that there's an institutional difference made in terms of where Marseille comes from at all levels. If the players say something, they will get penalised and punished. if the manager says something, he will get penalised and fined. If the president, the chairman, tries to influence or tries to talk to the referees after the game, then that will be penalised. And if the club as an entity tries to do something and appeal, they will also be penalised. And you're like you said, Ben, I was going to ask you, what do you think is the next step to do? We've tried everything in low dose. Maybe we could try to do a bit more on the front of like interviews and political pressures, but we've tried everything like as a sample size and nothing has worked. So
But it's quite clear that trying to do that will just attract more scrutiny. So it's a losing battle. We're fighting a losing battle. It's like if you're at work and your sort of manager is against you and they'll screw you, whatever happens or whatever. But you can adapt to that and you can sort of play the system a tiny bit and you can do whatever is in your control to get around those little things. That's all we can do because we know that we're up against it. And anything we try to do to fight this will blow up in our faces, attract even more scrutiny, and we'll just end up getting screwed even more. So there's nothing to do apart from improve on the pitch, which is clearly something we will discuss and we need to do, and also just fucking get on with it. And players need to keep their heads, even though it's frustrating, they just need to just go, fuck it, we expected that anyway, let's just crack on.
I agree. This isn't new stuff, because this has been going on for decades, I think, as long as I can remember. I mean, since I was a kid, growing up, this is how, when I talked to my dad about when we followed Marseille, this is exactly how he's always said it was. It's never been any different as long as I can remember. And
it has intensified recently, but I agree with you.
Maybe we can't beat the establishment, but maybe what we need to do, as you said, Ben, is we just need to become good. We need to beat our opposition on the pitch, and maybe the French football establishment might fall in love with us again, or if they ever did, if they see us as something that's beneficial for French football rather than this, club with a bad, a tarnished image, of this kind of sort of controversial period of success, that people are ashamed about. So maybe if we become so good in the same way that PSG have, then and the money that we bring in, are able to bring into French football, and the global recognition again, maybe that's the only way we can sort of defeat this. Yeah. So we're becoming too good for everyone else.
I'll give the closing statement on the refereeing issue, and then we'll just delve into line by line. I personally think that us being better is not a solution, because we saw with the Bielsa season, we were top of the league. We were basically we were advertising French football so well because we had videos all around the world of Bielsa football and how beautiful Bielsa plays and stuff. And I think that's probably the only seasons where we're getting shafted more than this season. So I think it doesn't matter when we're good, we're still getting done for. I think the best way to combat this, because I don't think we can just give up and to just basically deal with it, is to use the method that impacts us the least sportively. So I think we should prevent our players from actually making rash in-game decisions, because that will affect the game itself. I think I don't give a fuck whether if Ero is banned 4 games. I think when he comes back, he should put more pressure. I think it'll put out interviews, go to the referees and stuff. Because that will get us fines, that will get us whatever, him suspended, but it won't affect us point wise. It would. I think this, if he consistently adds pressure to the referees and instances outside the pitch, he might get suspended, he might get fines. But I mean, we don't really give a fuck about that. But that might have a long-term impact on how referees approach Marseille games. They'll be more scared of fucking us around because they'll know that Ero will just be breathing down the neck and will not let anything go. And I think that's the only way to go. Olas has done it. Olas is clearly doing it. It's been normalised. And I think Ero, if he sustainably does that, could be like him.
Ero isn't the one to do it, let's face it. Until we get a stronger president in that knows football, that has a few maybe connections and a little tiny bit of influence, maybe then he can weigh in a little bit and we can get a bit more respect. But Ero clearly is not the man for this. I mean, let's face it, who knows if he'll still be around in the next few months. So
yeah. Okay.
You're right on the solution, but you're wrong about the personnel.
Yeah, okay. So let's move on to the players. So first we'll move on to the goalkeeper. Normally we don't spend that much time talking about Mandanda because he's usually just the best player on the pitch. Today was no different. I feel like even though he conceded 3 goals, he was one of the leading men and was just basically receiving one-on-ones all day long. I mean, there was 3 goals, but there was also the crossbar. It was a one-on-one, and also a couple of saves that he made one-on-one. He was basically stranded on an island, just being shot at. What did you guys, Stefan? What did you think about Mandanda's performance? Would you think he warrants this his spot in the French team?
I thought he did pretty well, actually, to be honest. I mean, I think he had to come off his line quite a few times because his defence were just leaving just gaping holes and getting caught out in the counter-attack constantly, and he was actually a lot quicker than he's been the previous season. Yeah, I think he did as well as he could do in that game. It's disappointing that he had to concede 3 goals, but I think that he wasn't protected at all by his defence. So yeah, I think in current form, yeah, he does appear to be the best French goalkeeper. But I mean, I don't know if I would jump to say that he should be France's starting goalkeeper, though.
Well, Lloris is injured, and apparently it's not as serious as it seems, but he's going to be out for quite a while, probably a few months. So yeah, I think there is every chance that Mandanda will start the couple of games for France next week.
And who knows in what shape Lloris will come back in? Maybe Mandanda will be starting for the Euros.
Well, let's face it, Lloris, despite the injury, he's been on pretty poor form recently. He's made a few howlers, and he made another one on Saturday before he got injured. So I will never get happy about someone getting injured because it's just incorrect. I don't agree with that mentality, but it gives Mandanda a chance. And to be fair, if it can lift him even higher in his performances and his mental state, that he's going to be number 1 for France again. I'd rather he keeps focusing on OM and he has that on the front of his mind and gives that the priority. But I think it can lift him because he seems to be on that ascendant sort of frame of mind recently. So yeah, and with regards to his performance again, agree with everything you said, Steph. He did what he could. He saved us. We could have conceded more. He's back to being the usual Mandanda that we expected, and I think he's proving us all that last season was just a blip.
Yeah, I agree. But the reason why Mandanda is being so highly spoken of in the last few games is because of the massive gaps being exposed in our back line. If you guys want to kind of try to analyze how our back line did, so we did have a change for once. I thought last week, and I highlighted it in my takeaway, that Amavi wasn't a problem necessarily. He was just part of a system that was faulty. Yesterday, or on Friday, we played Sakai on the left back, Chaitata, Perrin, and then Sarr at the right back position. Stefan, what did you think about, so first of all, the change from Amavi and how it panned out?
See, I don't know if I entirely agree with that because I personally think the personnel isn't good enough. So I think Sakai is generally a bit more solid than Amavi defensively, and he certainly plays with his heart out. But he was getting caught out a lot as well. So you're right that there's something bigger than just blaming one player. I think Sakai doesn't offer the same going forward as Amavi. I know he does get forward as much as possible, and he was putting in a good shift in the other half of the pitch. But I think that there's something about the way that Amavi bombs forward with his pace that even if a lot of his balls and stuff don't really come to lead to anything, he's still creating space.
Yeah, and that's the threat of
in
him
the opposition. So I think Amavi does bring something in an attacking sense that we don't always appreciate. I think that. So yeah, I think Sakai wasn't. There's definitely flaws in his performance. I think that Perrin and Chaleta Sarr are a bit all over the place, to be honest. Just leaving big gaps constantly, getting caught out. We were playing way too high because we were chasing the game. I don't like Bouna Sarr. I've always said this on the podcast. I just think he's not good enough. Again, he bombs forward, got lots of pace, but I don't really see anything he does really lead into much, and I think defensively he's not strong enough. So yeah, I just think the back four just all over the place. Just no cool head there, no organisation as such. Just a bit, just playing a bit in panic mode. Like everyone's pushing forward, trying to get get the goal, get back into the game, but they're not really like managing themselves as a back four very well. They're not communicating well. They should know where each other is going to be. If someone pushes forward, they should know who's going to be covering what areas, and you don't really see that. You could see that Amiens were just picking them apart. Like Kakuta was just picking through passes. I mean, it was really nice to watch actually. If I wasn't a Marseille fan, I think from a neutral perspective, watching Kakuta, the way he was just linking up with Girassi?
Yeah.
Girassi. It was just really nice to watch. I mean, it's partly because Kakuta is a very talented player, but it's also because our defence was shit. So yeah, we were just getting made to look foolish for large parts of the game, especially in the second half, I felt.
Yeah, Ben, I'll give you the closing statement on the defenders. I'll just bounce off of what you said, Steph, because I think you nailed it on the head. It's because of the how the match turned out, how we were chasing the game basically the entire game, and we could have led with if we got the penalty and Amiens didn't, but because we were leading the whole game, we were playing such a high line, and Perrin and Chaitata, I mean, say what you want about the players, I like them, but they're clearly not adapted to play so high, and they were just they were just basically getting Kakuta was just throwing bombs behind them, and Perrin and Chaitata just couldn't chase and couldn't catch up, and Sarr did not adapt. Villas-Boas did not adapt to the kind of threat that Amiens was offering, and we just basically we spent the whole game not adjusting to this issue and just basically praying the Mandanda stops every one-on-ones. And obviously that cannot happen, or that can only happen for a few minutes. So I'm not sure if it's a player's issue. I still like Perrin, I still like Chaitata, I still like Sakai as a left back instead of Amavi, even though I agree. I think Amavi offers attacking solutions that are great, even though he's clumsy, but he does offer the threat. And Sarr is just not good enough. He spends his whole game as a winger, but he offers no real solutions as a winger. His crosses are god shit, and he can't actually pair up with. He doesn't link up with Lopez or Jamal well enough. So
he was shit when he was a winger for us.
Yeah, he was. Ben, what did you think? What did you think about any of the players in the back four?
I agree with your assessment of Sarr and Sakai. Sarr, I'd prefer him at right back, than at right winger, but it's clearly not good enough to aim for more than top 5 in this league at best, and that's when he's on form. I'll break it down to 3 things, 3 very quick points. Personnel, we've got 2 barely 20-year-old defenders. They've played 3 games together. We were always going to get found out against a team that has space and had pace away from home with that back line, and that's down to Gonzalez being injured, Kamara getting suspended. It was going to happen. I'll never bash 2 youngsters, especially one of our academy products that is come in, has been, if we take his performances over the last 3 weeks, he's been above average, but no, he's not great, but he's been above average, and he's putting in a shift. I don't expect more from him. Or Chiletakar, who, again, they've never played together, so they were always going to struggle at some point playing together in this run of games. Second point, systemic, and that's down to the coach. You know that Streetman's suspended. You need to either adapt that system and offer them better protection, especially away from home, or you need to take a bit of a gamble and maybe go 5 at the back to just add that coverage and shift someone from somewhere into that defence, or pack the midfield a bit more. So that's AVB's fault, and I think he realised that after the game. And then thirdly, I think we've all been bashing him, and this probably leads into the midfield topic, but I think we'll miss Streetman. I think we miss Streetman because he does clean up sometimes in front of the area. He does get a few balls back, and he's always good at. I think he's one of his biggest strengths for us is at reading that second ball when we have a clearance, and he always seems to get in front the attacking midfielder. And one of the main reasons Kakuta ran riot is because the defence had no fucking protection from the midfield.
Yeah. Well, let's talk about the midfield. So we played with three in the midfield. We did kind of change system throughout the game. It was kind of fluid, but at least on the paper we had three midfielders. So we had the two usual suspects being Lopez and Sanson. We can talk about them. And like you highlighted, Ben, the main change, when I was looking forward to it, was Strootman being suspended and Rongier being put in as a CDM. Now, statistically, Rongier had a good game as CDM because he's the player that tackled and got the ball back the most out of the whole 22 players on the field. But statistics and real game have got big differences. Like you said, Kakuta was just running riot. He was basically running circles around the whole team, doing whatever he wanted, and no adjustments were made by either the coach or the players. And Rongier naturally is the one that should have been at least man-marking Kakuta, so we'll probably be looking at him first. Ben, if you can just go back to your analysis of the CDM, what did you think about Rongier?
It's not his position, and sadly, I don't think it's Strootman. Certainly not by himself. Maybe with someone alongside him. But we don't have a natural CDM in the squad since Gustavo left, and it is just the way it is, and we've got to work around that. And the way to work around that is to play two deep midfielders alongside, and then one in front of them. Whether that's Lopez or Payet drops down and plays as that number 10 in front of the two holding midfielders. That is the solution for me, because clearly the personnel we have now is not adapted to play this system, especially with Strootman missing. And even when he isn't missing, he does struggle. But I think he's got that experience to bridge that gap a tiny bit. So again, yeah, as you say, Rongier statistically great game, but in the moments that mattered, i.e. the goals and the probably I think one of the one-on-ones that Mandanda conceded, he was nowhere to be seen. He looked lost, which again, he's just joined the team, so I'm not going to bash him, but that is at some point it's down to, as you said, the manager to fix that and the players to communicate between themselves. And it just wasn't working. We got completely eaten alive in midfield the whole game, and mainly physically. We lack physicality in that midfield. Our players are too light. Yeah.
Stefan, I'll give the voice to you now. Do you want to bounce off what Ben said, or do you want to talk about the partnership of Sanson and Lopez, who I mean, Sanson who seemed very frustrated the whole game, and Lopez who seemed lost in a scheme that was basically just skipping the midfield the whole game, whether it's defensively or it's offensively. Lopez kind of seemed lost. What did you make out of either of those players?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I agree. Sanson looked quite frustrated. He always gives his, plays with his heart, doesn't he? He always looks like he's giving it 100%, but he doesn't always pull everything off very well. Lopez, to be honest, I didn't really remember much of him from the game. I kind of felt like he wasn't that effective. I don't think the two of them ever play very well together.
Says it all, really. If you can't remember him, that says it all.
I think they've always kind of, I've thought that for a while, like, if they're both on the pitch, they don't seem to do very well, and then one of them plays well, the other one doesn't. I can never remember a game where they've both played well. I agree with everything Ben said, actually, about the midfield. We didn't buy a defensive midfielder to replace Gustavo. That was stupid. We bought another deep line playmaker, which is, he looks like a great player, to be honest. I really like what I see of him, but it's not really what we needed. At least maybe we've still got a big gap in the squad. I agree as well. I've said this before, haven't I? That I just think physically we're just not good enough. We need someone with muscle in the midfield. We really lack someone with athleticism.
We can really see it in set pieces when you try and see who's going to mark who, and then we've got Tratasar, and that's it.
Yeah. There was a problem all last season, and it wasn't addressed this summer. Gustavo from last season's squad was the midfielder that had the greatest physical qualities, and he's gone, and we replaced him with a little guy, you know. So and even last season we were lacking since we lost Zambo and Grisa. So yeah, I mean we need some muscle in midfield, like, and so someone with a bit of pace and power, you know, who can sit in that role, you know, in front of the defenders. And I know Strootman can do that, but he just doesn't have the physical, you know, the athletic sort of
And I don't
qualities
think
that we need.
I don't think there's a lot of hope with the youth academy either, because the most promising player is Flipono, but he's quite quite a smaller player with more technique than actual athleticism.
Yeah, and
Are we desperate enough to play
AVB's
Sertic?
well, no, but Sertic is clearly being marginalised. I think he's training with the reserves. He's apart from the first team squad. But even Filippino, I think AVB came out either yesterday or before the game and said, look, he's a great player. He's making a lot of progress, but you know, there's just too much competition in that position for his profile, and he has the exact same profile as maybe a bit more defensive minded, but he's the same physical profile as a Rongier or a Lopez.
Yeah, right. So I think we can really, basically, we've highlighted the deficiencies that we've seen in yesterday's games in our midfield, where Lopez was basically nowhere to be seen, and I think it's not solely due to him. It's also because of how the game turned out, where we skipped the midfield a lot, and he didn't have the chance to play higher the pitch and combine with our defenders or strikers very well.
And credit to Amiens, who have physical midfielders and who really brought the game to us, and they put them under pressure and they didn't let anybody have a second on the ball.
Yeah, it's true. That is true. But let's move on to the strikers. So we've got a front three was Radonjic, Benedetto and Germain with, tell me if I'm wrong, we had Lihaji coming off the bench. We had Kawi coming off the bench as well. Who was the third player coming off the bench? Oh, can't remember. Oh. Well, anyway, so we can at least talk about these 5 players. So we got Radonjic, Benedetto, Germain, Lihaji and Kawi. Steph, what did you think about those players? I personally think, before you go, please don't shoot me for this, but I'm actually quite impressed by Radonjic. I was expecting him to be like the same usual, but in the second half, I think he was having like an out of body experience. All of the decisions he was making was good. He was shooting well. He was combining well. Like, I don't know. What did you guys think about it?
Firstly, we didn't make a third substitution, I believe. I think we only brought in Kawi and Lihaji. So
let me check this.
That was why.
That explains it.
Radonjic had a better game probably than he normally does. He looked lively, but I still don't think he's good enough. And I think you were talking about it maybe in last week's podcast, the one before, Luca. You said that you were done with him and stuff, and I completely agree.
I'm still done with him.
Yeah. I'm not going to change my opinion of him if he, you know, when he has a good game or a good 10 minutes. I mean, he had a good effort, but he nearly scored, maybe he nearly scored. Keeper was kind of never really, you know, in that much trouble. But yeah, I don't like him. I'd sell him definitely summer, January if we can get rid of him. We're going to have to take a massive loss on him. He's not good enough.
Who wants him? Wants him?
Exactly. Just sell him, even if it's for peanuts. It's a waste. We're fucked up. We're not going to get that money back. Just get rid of him. See, and if we can bring.
Guess who his agent was? The same as Garcia's, but anyway.
No. Radonjic had Serbian ones. It wasn't Garcia's.
Yeah, but I think there was a huge pressure of Garcia's agent to sign him. I think that something happened at that point. If you read about it, something did happen on that front because he coached him at Roma, and there was some dodgy story. Read up about it.
Yeah. Okay. Fine. What did you think about the other about Benedetto, who scored a lovely goal, and he's now basically scored half of our goals of the whole season from a very poor
he has
10 goals in 8 games. But what did you think about Germain and Benedetto?
Well, just on Radonjic, again, just to conclude, I think that even if he gets to and he reaches some sort of potential, he will never be as good as an impact sub for us. He can't start games and be consistent for 90 minutes, that's clear. On the other two, Benedetto, I think he tried it a few times last week. He took possession of balls, he tried a couple of shots, he didn't score. I think we commented on that and got a bit frustrated, but we also said, hey, we'd rather have a striker that takes chances and that has a pair of balls than one of them that just drifts in and out of games. His goal was amazing. I think that's probably my favourite goal that he scored for us, because he created that all by himself from nothing. A beautiful shot. We know he's a very good shooter of the ball. He striked it clean, got a very good goal. Maybe, well, and also the moment when we weren't creating chances, it came out of nowhere. And you sort of think, in a game like that, away from home where you're struggling, that could easily be the click that the team needs to click into place and go, fuck, right, we're still in this. We scored a goal out of nowhere, let's step it up a bit. And we didn't, and then after that, for the rest of the game, he struggled because lack of service and isolation. And it's the same story as the last few weeks, where he runs his socks off, he gets himself all over the pitch, a bit more effectively than Germain, who does the same, but Benedetto has better technical and athletic qualities. But he can't do it all by himself. So that's the analysis on him. Germain, he's becoming more and more anonymous in that position on the right side of the pitch. But I also think that's down to lack of service and lack of how do you say in English, repère, lack of sort of habit of playing in that position and lack of experience of that position. And he has that tendency, which is good. He has that tendency to get close to the central striker and drift in a bit much, but we lose a hell of a lot of width when that happens. And that was clearly noticeable in Friday's game.
Yeah, Stefan, it does seem inevitable that if we want to see the best out of Benedetto and if we want to see the best out of Germain, it goes through having two strikers.
Maybe, yeah. At least at the moment, while Tovan's out injured, yeah. Maybe we should be playing a diamond, with Payet in the number 10 and Germain and Benedetto up front. Because if we played a Mavi and, dare I say it, Sarr or even Sakai at right back, the two fullbacks bomb forward enough anyway to play that kind of system, So yeah, I think that probably would make sense for now. And then when Tolvan comes back, I think we would have to go back to the 4-3-3. But seeing that Tolvan's coming back from a long layoff, we might not see
the best of him for a while.
Yeah, exactly. So this season might be a bit of a write-off for him anyway. The only thing I just wanted to add to that is that I kind of feel sorry for Benedetto. He left Boca Juniors for this shite, a club where they win most of their games, and it's pretty awesome club to play for. Marseille could be like that if we weren't so shit most of the time, which we unfortunately are. So yeah, I kind of feel sorry for him. He's kind of gone from a winning environment to a drawing environment at the moment. So
I'll go back to you actually, Stefan, just very quickly.
Case, but...
Very quickly, I'll go back to you. So we saw Lihaji yet again. Tell me what is going wrong at the moment for him. Is it because he's simply too young, or is it just like is he not being put in the right conditions? Is he too young, or is he just overhyped?
I don't think anything's gone wrong with him. I mean, anyone been put into that game on Friday, I can't expect miracles. A 17, 18-year-old kid comes on for 12 minutes, you know what I mean? Like, in a game where we're getting tanked. I don't think... No, I wouldn't look too much into it. I don't know if it's the right game to bring him on, to be honest.
Well, it seemed a bit of desperation, didn't it?
Yeah, I guess he's got nowhere else. But yeah, I think games like that are maybe not the best to bring on a young kid like that, because our heads are down. We need... I don't know if it's good for his self-confidence to come into a game like that and then come off the game, battered. Maybe from Villas-Boas's perspective, maybe he should think about maybe a bit more carefully about when he brings them in. But we don't have any other players really, do we? I guess you could have brought in Chabrol, who's a little bit older, a bit more experienced. He brought in Kawi. Yeah, fair enough.
Yeah.
But
very good.
We just, I think I read it somewhere else today or yesterday. Someone was saying the squad's too thin. We just don't have the depth in squad this season. So
Yeah.
What else are you going to do?
Very well. So, we'll just move on to your guys' takeaways. So, as you all know, it's just 30 seconds-ish to speak out just one kind of snippets of what you took away from this game and maybe kind of your expectations from this season. Ben, what's your takeaway from the Amiens game?
The same as the last few weeks. The quicker AVB realises that system is not adapted to our personnel, whether it's in midfield or up front, the better. It doesn't mean that there is a miracle fix-all system, but it does mean that this one isn't working. And then, again, the main takeaway is, I think when we commented on this run of games a few weeks ago, saying what we expected from it, I think I said I expected 6 points out of the 4 games, or 7 points out of the 4 games, with maybe 1 defeat and 1 draw and 2 wins, and we've got 3 draws and 1 win and 1 defeat, and it doesn't matter who's missing, it doesn't matter what's gone wrong in the refereeing. It's not good enough when you look at the teams we've been playing, especially with the run of games we've got coming up.
All right, Stefan.
I think it's that the squad is not deep enough and that we need to recruit.
You make the shortest takeaways ever, man. All right.
I think we need to win Euro Millions then, mate. Someone needs to win Euro Millions.
Well,
because I mean, where they're going to find the money.
Well, that's what we were all sold 3 years ago, wasn't it? That we had this new project that was going to invest lots of money, and I mean, it's all gone crap.
Yeah, we're supposed to have won Euro Million already.
Yeah, so I mean.
Yeah, but we did invest some of the money. It's just been invested quite poorly, and we are paying this season for the last 2 seasons of mismanagement of those summer transfer windows. We've wasted 30 million on players like Strootman, and
exactly. We don't have to spend 30 million. We don't have to spend 30 million on a defensive midfielder. We could have spent 14 million on that, guy we're always talking about that went off to Germany as he did. Exactly. So we just need to spend. The right profile as well. We just need to spend money sensibly,
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Fine. And then my takeaway is it'll kind of link and contrast to what you guys both said. My takeaway is that we've got a relatively large sample size now with 8 games going into the season. My takeaway is that seeing how AVB is behaving and playing and how a squad is playing, I think that the team that you've seen these past 8 games, regardless of the players that are out, this is the team that you're going to see for the rest of the season. We're probably going to win more games with Payet and Thauvin and Alvaro Gonzalez and Strootman just because of some individual brilliant moments they get where they shoot from 30 yards and score. But in terms of how the games are going to turn out, how easy we're going to win games, I think this is what it's going to look like for the rest. It's going to look like Mandanda just getting basically shot at blank point, our defense being very, very sloppy, and just basically hoping and praying that Thauvin or Payet just wake up on a good day and carry the team. And I find it really sad because we've spent over 300 million at this stage with this new project, and all we have to show for it is begging players who were already there before the project started to carry us to the promised land. So I think Villas-Boas will probably spend this year and we'll have a lot of excuses for him, but my patience is already worn out, and I think a lot of supporters inevitably are going to lose patience with Villas-Boas in his squad. Fine. So after these takeaways are done, so we're looking at an international break where I think Mandanda, Sakai have been selected, and probably maybe some of the youngsters are going to be playing with the under 21s for France and maybe Radonic for Serbia. And after that, we're playing Strasbourg. Ben, what are you hoping about Strasbourg at home? Are you seeing a bit of a jolt with the international break, or more of the same?
Well, I don't know. I don't know what to expect. I mean, I wouldn't say an optimistic side, but if you again look at the numbers, I think they're the only Ligue 1 team who's failed to score away from home so far this season. So I take a bit of encouragement from that, because I think it goes to say a lot about what their intentions will be when they come to players at home. But at the same time, if we don't capitalise on maybe them being very cautious and setting up at the back probably a bit more than Montpellier did in terms of not as effectively, but they will certainly pack their last 30 yards, and they won't have as much effectiveness on the break as Montpellier did because they don't have the same players. That will probably be a game where we will scrape a 1-0 win if we're lucky, or it will be another 0-0 draw.
What about you, Stefan? So looking past the Strasbourg game, we've already mentioned that it's going to be quite a rough round of games. Are you seeing the Marseille basically being in crisis mode at the end of October, or are you seeing this squad kind of pulling together and giving a few results?
I don't know. I mean, it's hard to say when you get an international break how you're going to come back after it. I expect us to get beat off Paris Saint-Germain. I mean, that's a given, isn't it? And who else have we got? We've got
Lyon at home, Lille at home, and Monaco away.
Well, Lyon are a bit of a mess, but they'll probably beat us. Just because, if we're both a mess going into it.
They always do. They just always beat us.
Yeah, so we'll see. I don't know. I'm just trying not to think about that period just now and just think one game at a time.
I'd be a lot more optimistic about that run of games if Gonzalez's injury wasn't as serious as it is, and he came back for the Strasbourg game and got 90 or 45 minutes under his belt, and if Payet was also not suspended for as long as he is. But the fact is, they both are going to be missing. They're both going to come back in the team only for the PSG game, and I think that we'll get found out in that game for those reasons, because they'll both be short of match fitness and sharpness, and it's just the way it is. It's unfortunate the way it's turned out with suspension and injuries, but at the same time, because the squad is so thin, we have no cover.
Yeah. Well, brilliant. Thank you very much, guys. So that's it for this episode. So we'll take a break from the podcast for 2 weeks and be back with you after the Strasbourg game to hopefully Marseille bringing back a victory for the first time in 5 games. Guys, you got any last words before we finish off the podcast? Nope. I take that as a no.
Not really. No. I mean, it's hard to come. It's hard to come up with anything positive after 4 games without a win, especially when you see the teams we've played. And it could be a very difficult October for us, which frankly it usually has been for the last couple of seasons. So
yeah.
Well, I mean, I think like the 2 things talking about earlier on in the group are some things to look forward to, in terms of like youth players, so supposedly we're opening up like a youth training like school in Algeria.
Yeah, that's true.
And then there's so we did something in Tunisia similarly as well recently, and then there's been, I think the Keep were talking about a potential partnership with Tepe Mazembe, like a Congolese club. There's quite a big club in Africa actually, who in recent years, I'm trying to think what players that came from them. I think there's definitely 1 or 2 good
I think
players.
they've certainly won or done very well in the African Champions League.
Yeah, they won the Champions League, didn't they, 1 year? Didn't they? And had that goalkeeper as well that did the funny celebration. But but yeah, so they are a big club in Africa, and I think I just think it's good for us to be branching out into Africa, not just because of bringing through young players, but also about marketing. I think we need to have strong links in that continent, especially as given there's so many French-speaking countries in Africa, and I think lots of people from lots of French-speaking African countries at a certain time would have grown up, like watching a club like Marseille and stuff. And nowadays that's not the case. Clubs like Chelsea, Arsenal are much more popular in Africa because of the Premiership, and also a lot of African players that have been playing in the Premiership. So yeah, I think it's a market as well that we need to go back to, and the more players that we've got coming through, quality players coming through that from countries like Congo and stuff like that is good for us, not only on the pitch but on a wider level. So yeah. So
yeah, I wholeheartedly agree.
Good to have a positive. Good to have a bit of positive.
Yeah.
It's not confirmed anyway. I think it's just what they're talking about it. So
yeah. Right, brilliant. So thank you very much, guys. So we'll catch you in 2 weeks, and take care between then. Right.
Cheers.
Cheers, guys.
Thanks, everyone.
Yeah.
Cheers, bye.
Cheers. Bye bye.